You're listening to a production of the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com.
Let's rewind to the 1920s, a time when Chicago was pulsing with cultural energy, roaring jazz, and relentless ambition. But what does a city do to immortalize such a transformative era? Build a stadium, of course. Soldier Field, set against the dramatic backdrop of Lake Michigan, wasn't just another sports venue. It was Chicago's answer to the challenge of symbolizing progress, unity, and pride. Now, you might be thinking, why a stadium? Why not a monument or museum? Well, back then, civic leaders were obsessed with dual-purpose structures places that could host both athletic spectacles and serve as memorials. That's what we call multi-purpose design, much like modern smartphones that double as cameras. Situated in what was then Lake Park, this was a bold move. Remember, Chicago had just survived the Great Fire of 1871 and was rebuilding fast. The choice of the lakefront wasn't accidental. It was about visibility and accessibility, two terms urban planners throw around all the time. But before foundations were laid, controversy brewed. Citizens protested, fearing the loss of precious green space, a classic dilemma. Should we preserve nature or embrace urban growth? Let me set the scene. Committees, petitions, heated debates. Does any of that sound familiar today? Even a century ago, Chicagoans were wrestling with the push and pull between preservation and progress, a theme that would haunt Soldier Field's story for decades to come. Every great structure starts with a visionary plan, and for Soldier Field, it was the legendary Daniel Burnham and Edward H. Bennett leading the charge. Their 1909 plan for Chicago didn't just map out streets, it dreamed up a city for the ages. Their plan earmarked the lakefront, then mostly prairie and marshland, as a space for recreation and public gatherings. Think of it as early city zoning, like setting aside certain apps for your phone's home screen to keep things organized. But here's the conflict. Pollution from rapid industrialization was choking Chicago. Some argued that new construction would only worsen living conditions. Legal battles ensued, with environmental advocates squaring off against progress-minded politicians. So how did the visionaries win? Political will and timing. The aftermath of World War I brought a surge of patriotism, and suddenly, a stadium that could also serve as a war memorial seemed like the perfect solution. Resolution came when plans for a memorial and a stadium merged, paving the way for a design competition that would shape the city's skyline. It's a classic case of compromise, blending civic pride with practical need. What makes a stadium more than just a collection of seats and turf? For architects Halberd and Root, the answer was symbolism and spectacle. Their winning design fused neoclassical grandeur with modern functionality, a bit like mixing a vintage car style with today's hybrid engine. Setup. They were tasked not just with building a sports arena, but with creating a tribute to fallen soldiers. This meant features like a colonnade of Doric columns and a proposed 500-foot tower. Two technical terms here. Colonnade, meaning a line of columns, and facade, the building's outward face. Conflict, their challenge? Respecting the nearby Field Museum's prominence while accommodating crowds and ceremonies. Letters between architects and city officials reveal a tug-of-war over height and width. The stadium had to be grand, but not overshadow its neighbor. Resolution came with a U-shaped configuration open toward the museum and lake, maximizing views and blending the new with the old. They achieved this by concentrating seating near the center, ensuring that even the nosebleed seats had a shot at a great view. So, was it just about sports? Not at all. The design was meant to foster civic unity, honor heroes, and provide a gathering space for everything from parades to exhibitions. Soldier Field was born a hybrid, a place where architecture met aspiration. Let me tell you a story. Even after the blueprints were finalized, Chicago wasn't ready to roll out the red carpet. Construction started in 1922, but the project was mired in disputes over environmental impact, cost, and the stadium's very purpose. Setup. Public opinion was split. Some saw Soldier Field as a beacon of hope. Others feared it was an eyesore encroaching on the city's water supply. Terms like public good and environmental stewardship were at the center of the debate. Conflict. Legal challenges slowed progress. Activist groups rallied to save the lakefront, while politicians doubled down, citing the stadium's potential for economic development and community health. Resolution came not with a bang, but with persistence. Construction was phased over nearly 2 decades, and by 1924, the stadium officially opened, marking the 53rd anniversary of the Great Fire. It was a pragmatic compromise, balancing the need for green space with the demands of a growing metropolis. Now ask yourself, are the city's grandest achievements ever free of friction? Soldier Field's story proves that progress often comes at the price of tough negotiations and sometimes public dissent. Dedication Day, November 11, 1925, the city renamed the stadium Soldier Field to honor America's war dead. It wasn't just a ribbon cutting, it was a public act of remembrance, a ritual that bound the city together. Setup: Soldier Field's neoclassical design drew inspiration from the Roman Colosseum. The term neoclassical refers to a style that revives classical Greek and Roman elements, think stone columns and grand arches, evoking endurance and strength. Conflict: even after its dedication, critics questioned whether a sporting venue was a fitting tribute for fallen soldiers. Some argued that pageants and parades trivialized the memorial's solemn purpose. Resolution: over time, Soldier Field became a living monument, hosting not just sports, but civic gatherings, military ceremonies, and community celebrations. It's what sociologists call a commemorative landscape, a place where memory and identity intersect. So next time you walk those storied corridors, remember, every stone, every column was designed to keep memory alive, and not just for Chicago, but for the nation. What does it take to turn a stadium into a city's beating heart? In its first decades, Soldier Field hosted everything from police rallies to Olympic-style meets. Picture this: 74 permanent seats, pine bleachers, and the capacity to add another 30. Imagine the roar of the crowd. Setup: the debut event, a 1-0-man police match, drawing nearly 100 spectators. Soon after, collegiate football and track meets followed. The term multi-use venue describes a facility ready for everything, like your laptop running both spreadsheets and Netflix. Conflict: but even as Chicagoans embraced the stadium, sports preferences were shifting. Football hadn't yet claimed dominance early on. Track, boxing, even rodeo stole the spotlight. Did you know that Soldier Field hosted the first major stadium skiing event? Resolution: over time, football took center stage, but Soldier Field proved it could adapt to changing tastes, staying relevant through decades of fads and fashions. If you thought a stadium was just for touchdowns, think again. Soldier Field was, and remains, a playground for the city's wildest dreams. Let's take a walk around the stadium, not for a game, but to discover its hidden monuments. Did you know there's a column here that predates the stadium itself? A gift from Mussolini dating back to Julius Caesar's Rome? Setup: the Babbo Monument features a stone column from ancient Italy commemorating a groundbreaking transatlantic flight. Technical term alert: breccia, that's the compressed stone used for the column, and transatlantic just means crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Conflict: some of these memorials, like the Babbo Monument, have faded into obscurity, overshadowed by newer tributes like the Walter Payton and George Halas statues, or the Eternal Flame of Hope for Special Olympics. Resolution: together, these monuments transform Soldier Field into a living history museum, telling stories of bravery, inclusion, and community. Each statue and sculpture is a touch point, connecting past to present. So next time you're tailgating, take a detour. There's more to see than the scoreboard. Soldier Field's grounds are a testament to Chicago's layered legacy. If you ask most people about Soldier Field, they'll say one word: Bears. But football wasn't always king here. For decades, Soldier Field was home to rodeos, political rallies, and even pro soccer. So how did football win the day? Setup: the 1926 Bears-Cardinals charity game marked the start of pro football at Soldier Field, but it wasn't until 1971 that the Bears made it their permanent home. Technical terms: franchise refers to a professional sports team's business entity, and merger means joining forces, in this case, the NFL and AFL leagues. Conflict: the stadium saw a revolving door of tenants, Rockets, Cardinals, and more each, with their own identity crises and struggles for fan loyalty. The Bears' move was prompted by league rules demanding larger venues. Think of it as a software update forcing you to buy new hardware. Resolution. With the Bears' arrival, Soldier Field's fate as a football cathedral was sealed. Tailgating culture flourished, and the stadium became synonymous with Chicago's sports identity. So next time you see those navy and orange jerseys, remember, Soldier Field's history is as layered and dynamic as the city it serves. What's the mark of a truly great stadium? Its ability to adapt. Soldier Field isn't just for touchdown sits hosted Special Olympics, presidential visits, and even massive religious gatherings. Setup. The first International Special Olympics in 1968, a 150, zero-strong rally for FDR in 1944, and the largest Marian Year celebration in 1954. These are just a few examples. Terms convention hall, multi-purpose large space, and commemorative event, public gathering to honor or remember. Conflict. Juggling so many roles isn't easy. Each event brought logistical headaches and raised questions about the stadium's core identity. Is it a sports palace, a civic forum, or something else? Resolution. Soldier Field's versatility has become its hallmark. From tailgates to torch relays, it's proven that a stadium can be a true public square place for everyone, no matter the occasion. So, next time you walk through those gates, ask yourself, what story will unfold here today? At Soldier Field, every event writes a new chapter in Chicago's ongoing saga. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the UFO on the stadium. In the early 2000s, Soldier Field underwent a radical renovation, sparking fierce debate. Was this a much-needed upgrade or an act of architectural vandalism? Setup. The old stadium was plagued by outdated amenities, think trough urinals and obstructed views. Terms, ADA compliance, making spaces accessible for people with disabilities, and concession, food and drink sales inside venues. Conflict. The new design preserved only the historic outer colonnades, dropping a futuristic steel and glass bowl inside. Critics called it a spaceship crash landed on the Parthenon. The stadium lost its National Historic Landmark status in 2006, a rare and telling consequence. Resolution. Yet, the renovation brought modern comforts, increased capacity, and even earned LEED certification for sustainability. Preservationists fumed, but some architects praised the bold, juxtaposition deliberate contrast to distinguish old from new. Now, you might be thinking, does progress always mean erasing the past? Or can old and new coexist, each telling its own story? Soldier Field forces us to confront these questions with no easy answers. So, after all this change, what does Soldier Field mean today? For some, it's a cherished landmark, warts and all. For others, it's a cautionary tale of modernization gone too far. But above all, it's a living, evolving symbol of Chicago's resilience. Setup. The stadium's earned accolades for sustainability, becoming the NFL's first LEED-certified venue. Terms, LEED, leadership in energy and environmental design, and adaptive reuse, repurposing old buildings for new uses. Conflict. The debate lingers: has the soul of Soldier Field been preserved or compromised? Opinions differ, but one thing's for sure. The stadium continues to host over 200 events a year, serving as a hub for sports, culture, and community. Resolution. In blending past and present, Soldier Field stands as proof that history is never static. It evolves, just like the city it serves. Its story reminds us that preservation and progress aren't always enemies sometimes. They're partners in the ongoing experiment of urban life. As someone whose childhood memories are woven into Soldier Field's fabric, I'll admit my bias. But whether you love the new look or mourn the old, there's no denying Soldier Field Ice Sand always will be Chicago icon.